There is a quiet truth that few of us are taught as children, and even fewer of us fully accept as adults. You were never born to please everyone. From the earliest moments of life, we are subtly conditioned to seek approval, to measure our worth through the eyes of others. A smile, a nod, a word of praise can light up our inner world. A frown, a glance of disapproval, a passing critique can leave us unsettled for hours, days, even years. This is not a flaw. It is a reflection of the human mind, shaped by evolution, society, and habit. But the moment we begin to realize that our value is not contingent on universal approval, a freedom quietly begins to emerge. Zen teaches that attachment to approval is a source of suffering. When your mind constantly seeks validation from others, it becomes a prisoner of their moods, their judgments, their expectations. You move through the world tentatively, always calculating, always weighing, always wondering if what you do, say, or feel is acceptable. And yet, no matter how much you adjust, you will never fully satisfy everyone. Human desire for approval is infinite, and each person's perspective is unique, shaped by their own fears, conditioning, and preferences. Trying to meet them all is like chasing the horizon, an endless pursuit that drains your energy and clouds your heart. Consider the story of a young painter who sought recognition for his work. Every brushstroke, every canvas, was measured by the reaction of others. Praise gave him elation, criticism brought despair. Years passed, and he realized that despite constant effort, there was always someone dissatisfied, always a voice questioning his choices. One day, an old Zen teacher visited his studio. The teacher did not comment on technique, style, or color. He simply asked the painter to paint without thought of judgment, without hope for approval. At first, the painter felt awkward, almost guilty, as if he were abandoning a sacred duty. But as the colors flowed freely from brush to canvas, without expectation, something shifted. The work felt alive. The energy was light. For the first time, he realized that art existed not for others, but through him. The painting became an extension of his being, not a reflection of another's standards. And in this freedom, a profound joy arose, one that no critique could diminish and no praise could inflate. This story illustrates a vital truth. When we base our actions, our worth, or our happiness on the approval of others, we are no longer the authors of our own lives. Instead, we become actors in a play written by collective expectation, rehearsing endlessly for an audience that changes constantly. Zen invites us to step off the stage of external approval and into the quiet center of our own being, where clarity, purpose, and authenticity reside. It is natural to desire connection and acceptance. Humans are social creatures, but there is a difference between connection and subservience, between engagement and self-erasure. The mind that constantly seeks to please is never fully present. It watches, anticipates, reacts, and measures. It adapts, conforms, and hides. It forgets its own desires, its own rhythms, its own voice. Each act of people-pleasing, no matter how subtle, carries a cost. Energy is spent not on creation, not on experience, but on maintenance. Maintaining appearances, satisfying expectations, navigating moods, and avoiding disapproval. Over time, the soul becomes fatigued, the body tense, the mind restless. There is also the subtle erosion of self-worth. When your sense of value depends on someone else's recognition, you live in a constant state of fluctuation. A compliment lifts you temporarily, but its absence leaves emptiness. A glance of disapproval may weigh more heavily than the most sincere praise. Your inner compass is replaced by external signals. Zen teaches that true stability arises when the mind becomes its own witness, when the heart affirms its own worth without reliance on validation from the world. Even relationships, which are often sources of comfort, can become channels of subtle depletion when you strive to please. You might soften your voice, adjust your opinions, suppress your desires, or compromise your needs, all to ensure harmony. And yet this harmony is superficial. Beneath it, tension accumulates. Your energy is siphoned into adaptation rather than authenticity. Over time, resentment may quietly form, though it is often unrecognized. This is not malice. It is the natural consequence of living in the shadow of another's expectations. Zen offers a path to freedom, awareness, presence, and gentle acceptance. Begin by noticing the patterns of people-pleasing without judgment. Observe when your actions are driven by hope for approval or fear of disapproval. Name it silently in your mind. See it clearly, without resistance, without self-reproach. Awareness itself weakens the compulsion to conform, because energy is no longer spent unconsciously. It is now a conscious choice. Another important step is to explore your own values, desires, and priorities. What do you genuinely care about? What choices reflect your essence rather than societal standards? What activities, thoughts, or experiences nourish your spirit rather than feeding obligation? When actions are aligned with inner truth, they carry energy instead of draining it. Even if others disapprove, the mind remains steady, because approval is no longer a currency of your value. Letting go of the need to please does not make you careless or selfish. It makes you whole. You can care deeply, act kindly, and contribute meaningfully without sacrificing your center. Zen teaches that the heart that is anchored in self-awareness naturally radiates authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic. Others may still respond with approval or disapproval, but your energy is no longer contingent upon it. You are no longer a hostage to the ever-shifting tides of external judgment. Even in moments of conflict, when criticism or disapproval arises, the practice remains the same. Observe, breathe, and release. You do not need to justify, explain, or defend. The more you internalize that your worth is intrinsic, the less energy is spent on external validation. Over time, this creates a quiet confidence, a steadiness of being that cannot be shaken by praise or condemnation. And so the first lesson unfolds naturally. Your life is yours to live. The freedom to act, speak, create, and exist is inherent. Approval is optional. Validation is secondary. Presence is primary. The mind that no longer seeks to please is liberated, not from connection but from bondage. It becomes a vessel for clarity, purpose, and energetic integrity. As you step deeper into this awareness, another subtle pattern becomes clear: the illusion of control. We believe that by pleasing others, we secure safety, affection, or acceptance. We hope that if we meet expectations, if we soften our edges, if we adjust our words, then the world will respond favorably. But Zen reminds us that the world is inherently unpredictable. People's perceptions, desires, and judgments are not ours to control. No amount of adaptation can guarantee approval. The mind that seeks to control through pleasing is caught in an endless cycle of anticipation, calculation, and anxiety. Consider a young monk who once sought to reconcile everyone in his monastery. He smiled when asked, bowed when instructed, and offered assistance at every request. Yet, no matter how diligently he acted, there were still disagreements, still criticism, still dissatisfaction. One evening, the abbot approached him quietly and said, "You cannot water the entire garden and expect every flower to bloom. Tend what is within your hand, and let the rest grow as it will." The monk reflected on this and gradually understood that his energy had been diffused, diluted by the impossible task of pleasing all. By focusing on his own conduct, his own presence, he found that harmony emerged naturally, not from effortful appeasement, but from authenticity. This teaches a vital lesson. Energy is precious, and when spent in pursuit of approval, it becomes diluted. The mind scattered, the heart fatigued, the spirit restless. By redirecting attention inward, by cultivating clarity and alignment with one's own values, energy becomes concentrated. Actions are more effective, interactions more meaningful, and presence more luminous. You cannot satisfy everyone, but you can honor yourself, and in doing so, you honor the world in a far more authentic way. A further reflection is the recognition of impermanence. Opinions change, moods shift, and circumstances evolve constantly. What pleases one person today may displease another tomorrow. The mind that seeks permanence in approval is bound to disappointment. Zen teaches that stability arises not from external conditions but from inner grounding. The more you anchor yourself in self-awareness, the less the fluctuations of external judgment disturb your energy. You begin to notice that while opinions come and go, your intrinsic value remains constant. There is also the subtle truth of projection. Often, when someone criticizes, disapproves, or judges, they are reflecting their own fears, insecurities, or unmet needs. Their words, their gestures, their expectations are not absolute truths about you. They are mirrors of their inner world. Zen invites you to observe this carefully. The reaction you receive is often about them, not about you. This perspective releases the mind from unnecessary identification, from unnecessary suffering, and restores energy that would otherwise be absorbed into another's emotional patterns. Even in close relationships, the practice remains vital. Friends, family, colleagues, they all have their own perspectives, limitations, and attachments. You may wish to please them out of love or duty, but Zen teaches that love is not conditional on constant compliance. Love, compassion, and kindness flourish most fully when your presence is genuine, not a performance. By acting from authenticity rather than expectation, you build relationships rooted in clarity, respect, and mutual understanding. The energy is lighter, freer, more sustainable. Another subtle lesson is the quiet power of setting boundaries. Pleasing everyone often involves crossing personal limits, suppressing needs, and tolerating discomfort. Over time, this erodes vitality. Zen encourages gentle yet firm awareness of limits. Saying no is not cruelty, it is an act of self-respect. Choosing where to invest energy, where to engage, and where to refrain is a practice of freedom. Each boundary set consciously is a reclamation of your own center. Your presence remains intact, your energy undiminished, and your clarity preserved. There is a story of a traveler who carried water in a cracked vessel, constantly trying to offer drink to every thirsty person he met. No matter how often he refilled, the vessel never retained enough and he grew weary. One day, a wise elder observed him and said, "You pour for everyone, yet your vessel has holes. Tend to it first and the water will last." The traveler repaired his vessel, filled it with care, and then shared. Now, the water nourished others without depleting him. The lesson is clear. By tending to your own energy first, you naturally become a source of sustenance for the world. Pleasing all before caring for yourself empties the vessel. Zen also emphasizes the value of mindful action. When you act with awareness, without attachment to outcome, without seeking validation, your actions carry energy rather than drain it. Each movement, each word, each intention flows from clarity rather than compulsion. You notice a natural elegance emerges in life when approval is no longer the aim. Interactions become effortless, creativity becomes freer, and the mind is lighter. Approval may come, or it may not, but your energy remains intact regardless. As awareness deepens, the mind begins to notice subtle patterns of comparison. People-pleasing is often fueled by comparison. Someone else seems happier, more successful, or more accepted, and you feel compelled to match or exceed them. Zen practice reminds you that your path is yours alone. Comparison is a theft of energy, diverting attention from what is within. By returning focus to presence, practice, and alignment with your own values, energy is restored. The mind becomes spacious. The heart becomes light. You no longer measure your worth by another's reflection. Even societal expectations, which are pervasive and insistent, lose their grip when awareness is cultivated. Career, status, reputation. These constructs can subtly dictate behavior if we are unaware. Pleasing society may bring temporary approval, but it often leaves the heart unfulfilled. Zen teaches that life lived authentically, in accordance with one's own truth, creates natural harmony. Approval may arise spontaneously from alignment, but it is not sought or required. This is freedom. And so the second lesson unfolds. You are free to honor yourself first. Approval is optional, not essential. Happiness and clarity arise when your energy is preserved, your intentions are pure, and your actions flow from authenticity rather than fear of disapproval. As you continue to practice, the compulsion to please weakens. You begin to notice subtle shifts. Tension in the body eases, the mind becomes more spacious, and energy once trapped in worry or calculation flows freely into creation, presence, and meaningful action. As you move deeper into this understanding, another insight arises. Freedom is not found in rebellion against others, but in mastery over self. People-pleasing often masquerades as politeness, kindness, or duty, yet underneath lies a subtle fear of rejection, of conflict, of being alone. Zen teaches that fear is a gentle teacher, not an enemy. By observing it without judgment, without acting compulsively to satisfy it, you begin to uncover the space beneath. In that space, you are free. Approval is no longer a chain, and fear no longer dictates action. There is a story of a young woman who constantly altered her behavior to fit into social circles. She laughed when jokes did not amuse her, agreed with opinions she did not share, and concealed her desires to maintain acceptance. One day, a wandering monk asked her to speak honestly, even if it meant discomfort or disapproval. At first, she resisted, fearing isolation. But as she practiced, a remarkable transformation occurred. Words once withheld flowed effortlessly, gestures once calculated became natural, and she discovered that relationships that mattered flourished while superficial attachments faded. She realized that those who truly belonged in her life accepted her as she was, and the rest required no energy, no struggle. This story illustrates a fundamental principle. When you cease to shape yourself to meet the expectations of everyone around you, you create space for authentic connection. Energy that was previously scattered, diluted, or misdirected is now concentrated. Life becomes less complicated, not because others change, but because your relationship with your own mind and heart becomes clear. The need to control perception dissolves, and freedom emerges as a natural state. Even in professional life, the compulsion to please can be subtle and pervasive. You may overextend, overcommit, or overexplain in the hope of being seen favorably. Zen teaches that action rooted in clarity and skill is far more effective than action rooted in fear of judgment. When you perform tasks aligned with your capacity, understanding, and purpose, recognition may follow, but it is not required. Energy is preserved, focus is sharpened, and presence deepens. The mind is no longer entangled in the fluctuations of opinion. Another powerful lesson is the recognition of impermanence in perception. Opinions, praise, and criticism arise and dissolve continuously. Today's approval may vanish tomorrow. Today's critique may transform into admiration over time. When you anchor your identity in fleeting judgments, you are subjected to endless fluctuation. Zen teaches that stability comes from within. Your essence is not measured by applause or reproach. It exists independently of external perception, unshakable, clear, and radiant. Consider the practice of reflective detachment. When confronted with judgment or expectation, pause, breathe. Observe the sensations, thoughts, and impulses that arise. Ask yourself silently, does this define me? Does this require my energy? Often, the mind will reveal a subtle compulsion to react, defend, or appease. Recognize it without resistance. Release it without force. Each moment of practice detachment strengthens the inner sanctuary, gradually making the need to please optional rather than automatic. There is also the quiet power of self-responsibility. People-pleasing often shifts responsibility outward. You may feel accountable for another's feelings, moods, or satisfaction. Zen practice emphasizes that your responsibility lies in your own action, your own presence, your own integrity. You may act with compassion, kindness, and discernment, but the emotional state or judgment of others is beyond your control. Reclaiming responsibility for yourself frees energy previously expended on unneeded caretaking. Even habitual thought patterns can create subtle chains. Worrying about how you are perceived, rehearsing conversations, imagining judgments, all these mental habits reinforce the compulsion to please. Zen invites you to witness these patterns with gentle curiosity. Observe the thought arise, trace its course, and let it pass. Like clouds drifting across the sky, thoughts and judgments need not anchor themselves in your awareness. This practice gradually liberates energy trapped in anticipation and rumination. There is a story of a craftsman who shaped intricate sculptures. For years, he worked in fear of criticism, constantly comparing his work to others, adjusting every detail to satisfy unseen observers. One day, a teacher asked him to carve a piece without concern for judgment or reputation. The craftsman hesitated, then began. As he worked, he noticed a lightness in the hands, clarity in the mind, and harmony in the creation. When the sculpture was complete, it was unlike anything he had done before, authentic, alive, and effortless. In releasing the need to please, he discovered mastery. This reveals another truth. Excellence is not born from pleasing others, but from alignment with one's own vision, discipline, and awareness. Energy invested in external validation is energy diverted from authentic creation. The moment you release the compulsion to satisfy everyone, your potential unfolds naturally. Your presence becomes magnetic, not because of approval, but because of authenticity, clarity, and integrity. A related insight is the subtle distinction between influence and attachment. You may care deeply about the opinions of those you respect or love, but care need not equate to attachment. Zen teaches that influence can guide action without becoming a chain. You may consider advice, observe feedback, or weigh perspectives, yet your energy remains sovereign. This is the space where wisdom and freedom coexist. Approval becomes informational, not existential. Finally, the deeper realization begins to crystallize. Life is not a performance designed for others. Your time, attention, and energy are finite. Each act of people-pleasing reduces capacity for authentic engagement, for mindful presence, and for self-expression. When you live aligned with your own values, priorities, and inner truth, energy flows. Life feels lighter. Moments become fuller. Presence becomes unshakable. The need to be seen, liked, or validated dissipates into clarity. And so the third lesson emerges clearly. Your life is a sacred space. Approval is a visitor, not a ruler. Happiness, clarity, and freedom reside in the mind that chooses authenticity over appeasement, presence over performance, and integrity over conformity. With practice, you notice subtle shifts. Energy returns, tension releases, mind and body harmonize, and the heart experiences a quiet, radiant ease. As you continue walking this path, another subtle realization arises. Peace and freedom are not found in the absence of others' opinions, but in the mastery of your response to them. People will always have expectations, judgments, and desires. The mind that seeks to please constantly reacts, adjusts, and reshapes itself to meet these shifting demands. But the mind that knows its own value remains steady. Approval becomes optional, disapproval becomes information, and energy no longer leaks into endless cycles of compulsion. Consider a teacher who once said to a group of students, "If a single word from another can disturb your mind, you are not free." True freedom is the ability to act, speak, and exist without being moved by the tides of others' thoughts. At first, the students resisted. How could one live in a world where opinions are unavoidable without seeking validation? But with practice, awareness, and reflection, they discovered that the mind itself is a sanctuary. When grounded in presence, the world's judgments bounce off like ripples on water. The surface may react, but the depth remains calm, clear, and undisturbed. One of the most challenging moments arises when criticism or disapproval comes from those we love. Parents, partners, friends, colleagues, they hold a special place in our hearts, and their judgments can feel heavier than a stranger's. Zen teaches that attachment to their approval is natural but not compulsory. Their perspective may guide, inform, or provoke reflection, yet it does not define your essence. When you accept this, energy previously tied to fear, guilt, or obligation is liberated. You act from alignment, not compulsion, and relationships transform into interactions of clarity, respect, and authentic connection. Even daily interactions, seemingly small, carry the subtle pull of compulsion. A comment, a question, a glance can trigger the habit of pleasing. Zen invites you to pause, breathe, and observe. Ask yourself silently, does this require my energy? Does this align with my truth? Often the answer is no. Each conscious choice not to engage in automatic people-pleasing is a reclamation of freedom. The mind becomes spacious, the heart light, and the body relaxed. Life begins to move with less friction and more flow. Another insight emerges. Authenticity is magnetic. When you act from alignment with your own values, energy radiates naturally. You are no longer bending, shrinking, or hiding to meet expectations. People respond not because you seek approval, but because your presence is genuine, your energy intact, and your being harmonious. The mind that is free from the compulsion to please becomes a quiet force of clarity, drawing connection without effort, influence without coercion, and respect without demand. There is a story of a wanderer who traveled through villages, constantly trying to conform to local customs, manners, and expectations. No matter how diligently he adapted, he felt invisible and exhausted. One day he stopped, closed his eyes, and simply breathed, acknowledging his own presence without concern for others' perceptions. In that moment, a profound stillness settled within him. People noticed not because he performed, but because his authenticity shone. Life began to unfold effortlessly, and he discovered that pleasing others had never been necessary. Only being present, grounded, and true to himself was enough. Zen also teaches the subtle importance of selective engagement. You are free to care deeply, to act with kindness, and to contribute meaningfully, but not at the expense of your center. Energy is finite, attention precious. Every moment spent chasing approval is a moment not spent nurturing presence, creativity, and clarity. By choosing where and how to invest your energy, you maintain integrity, preserve vitality, and cultivate a life that is truly your own. The next lesson is patience with yourself. Letting go of the compulsion to please is not instantaneous. Habits, conditioning, and deep-seated fears persist. Zen practice is gentle, persistent, and non-judgmental. Each time you notice the impulse to seek approval, observe it, release it, and return to presence. Each small choice strengthens the mind, restores energy, and deepens clarity. Progress may be subtle, almost imperceptible at first, but over time it becomes profound, transforming perception, action, and experience. Even the language you use shapes this process. Words of self-affirmation, quiet reflection, and gentle boundaries reinforce the mind's sovereignty. Phrases such as "I act from my truth," "approval is optional," "my energy is my own," become anchors for presence. The repetition of mindful thought patterns gradually reshapes the habitual reflex to please, creating a foundation of inner stability. There is also the profound freedom in release. Release of expectation, release of compulsion, release of judgment. When you stop holding your worth hostage to others' opinions, a quiet joy emerges. Life is no longer a performance, but a practice of alignment, presence, and authenticity. The mind rests. The heart opens. The spirit expands. You no longer bend, twist, or shrink. You walk in the world unburdened, yet fully engaged, alive to the moment and connected to the essence of being. The culmination of this practice is the understanding that you were born not to please everyone, but to inhabit your life fully, authentically, and freely. Approval is optional, guidance is considered, influence is observed, and energy is preserved. The mind that is no longer a hostage to judgment experiences clarity. The heart that is no longer seeking validation experiences freedom. The body that is no longer tense with expectation experiences ease. And life itself unfolds with elegance, flow, and purpose. As the final insight emerges, it becomes clear. Freedom, peace, and authenticity are inseparable. You are not here to satisfy all expectations, to chase every nod of approval, or to harmonize with every voice. You are here to exist fully, to act from truth, and to cultivate presence. The world will respond as it will, but your energy remains sovereign. Your mind remains unshakable. Your heart remains open. So the last lesson is simple yet profound. Live your life as your own. Speak your truth. Act with integrity. Align with your essence. Let go of the need to be accepted by all. The mind that practices this is spacious. The heart that embodies it is light, and the spirit that embraces it is free. And in this freedom, the subtle joy of being unfolds. A joy not contingent on applause or approval. A joy that rests quietly within, untouched by the fluctuations of others. You discover that life lived authentically is naturally harmonious. Energy flows, presence deepens, awareness expands, peace becomes the default state. You are no longer a prisoner of expectation. You are the master of your own mind, the steward of your own energy, and the author of your own experience. This is the essence of living without the compulsion to please. A life of clarity, freedom, and radiant authenticity. You were never born to satisfy everyone, and in realizing this, you reclaim the most precious gift of all, yourself.